In this Lords of the Fallen 2 video, I would like to check out Fextralife along with a couple other creators over on YouTube and look more into the lore behind Lords of the Fallen 2. Now, if you haven't played Lords of the Fallen, I highly suggest it, especially with version 2.0 being out and many of the bugs, issues, all that stuff was corrected, fixed up. And man, what a great Souls like game. I've been thinking since Gamescom, I've been in the mood to kind of revisit that, look more into the trailer, see what was revealed, see what other creators are saying. Because, like I said, with lore, it's not my strong suit. I think I'm more fascinated when it comes to this game. As you know, this release I think is going to be really good. I did have the honor and privilege to talk to one of the devs, and one of the things that he noted was that they put a lot of work into 2.0 and the first Lords of the Fallen, but they have learned a lot. And their goal is to bring the best possible experience to us as gamers. So sit back, relax. Let's start this first video by Fextralife and enjoy. To set the stage for Fextralife's video here, he had an interview with David Valjallo and one of the strategists behind Lords of the Fallen 2, and he sets up an interview which I have yet to listen to, but I wanted to react to this with you guys. So let's get started.
The sequel is set in the same world 100 years after the event of the first game.
Yep.
Does that mean that there is like a canon ending for the first game? And if so, which is the canon ending?
Yeah, the canon ending is the Umbral apocalypse. So basically, the world has gone to shit in the next game, 100 years later. And when I say that, there's actually nuance to it, right? Which is, Umbral is actually thriving. Like, Umbral, as you could see in a trailer, is healthier and happier than ever.
Was Umbral not already thriving enough in the first one? And I gotta say, if you've seen this trailer already, it is much darker from like this 1 minute video or however long it was, this trailer. Like, it is way darker, and I'm all about it. What are you excited about the most when it comes to Lords of the Fallen? Let me know in the comments.
actually means it's more gross, grimy, slimy than ever. Whereas Umbral, Axiom, sorry, is like suffering, vulnerable, you know, dying. So this battle between the two realms has really gone up a notch and heading towards its end game, basically. So that's why the stakes are really higher than the last game too. So 100 years have passed, and they've been 100 years of pain and suffering for Axiom, while Umbral has blossomed or flourished.
Okay.
I hope I got those both right. It's been a word salad.
I think you did. So one of the things we really liked about Lords of the Fallen was the improvements to multiplayer mechanics that you guys have added to the Souls formula, and we wanted to.
I will also leave a video down in the description. So one of the things that they have is the player pass for Lords of the Fallen, and all you need to do is, if you have the game, a friend can come in and completely play it for free, and you guys can go through the whole entire story together. So like I said, video in the description if you guys want to check that out. Quick tutorial on how to set that up.
Know if you had new ideas or concepts for multiplayer that you want to explore in the second game.
We do. We absolutely do. I think we underestimated how popular a co-op Souls-like would be with Lords of the Fallen 2023. That's also why we've got the Free Friends Pass in V2.0. We saw how popular that was. And we absolutely want to make sure that players, you know, from day one with Lords of the Fallen 2, feel at home in co-op. So we're absolutely looking at ways that we can improve, enhance that. And everything that we've done with the current game, if we call it that, is carrying forward its steps.
So the game has had major updates and improvements. Obviously, the 2.0 version of the game. You mentioned in the press release that you're bringing lessons that you've learned and you're applying them to the second game.
One thing I am hoping for is that they don't start Lords of the Fallen 2 like they did in the first one. I've been seeing that time and time again with so many games, other than Hollow Knight Silksong. Like, every game that's been coming out has so many bugs, so many issues. Like, it's baffling. And Lords of the Fallen, it was really bad. I don't want to say it was unplayable, but it was borderline unplayable, and it took them a very long time to get it fixed up, really until they hit 2.0 for their update. So I'm really hoping they don't do that with this next one.
What are your major takeaways from that enhancement work? And for example, Can users expect like better performance at launch this time around?
Yeah, we're absolutely determined not to make the same mistakes that we made
That's good to hear.
in 2023. You know, we learned a hard lesson there really with some of the technical hiccups, and then spend 18 months really trying to get it right again with leading up to 2.0. We feel like it's at the point now where we're really proud of Lords of the Fallen, so we're ready to move on to the next one. In terms of the lessons that we're carrying forward, it's not just the technical, or even the gameplay. It's actually much bigger than that. A lot of it is on the creative. So story, world building, even world design, because I think environmental storytelling is so important in this type of game. We're carrying lessons forward and acknowledging some of the criticisms or weaknesses you might have had with the last game in the next one.
That is so good to hear. If you're enjoying this video so far, definitely consider subscribing, smash that like button. But I really do like to hear, like, they acknowledge how the game did launch. And I can only imagine because, like you said, 18 months of fixing bugs and updates. Like that must have been so much work. And honestly, I don't know if they felt the pressure of just launching when they did, because if they would have waited another year, the game probably would have had a much better launch. I don't really know, but I don't want to speak because I'm not a developer on this, but I will anyways. I think it just sucks that they have to feel the pressure of pushing a game out, and the amount of work and rewrites on this, and from going from one developer to over to CI Games. And this game, Lords of the Fallen, almost wasn't even a thing. The fact that they did launch it in the first place, like, big kudos to CI Games and Hexworks for making that actually work. But the acknowledgement that David is providing, I think, is great.
Here's a very direct question. Do you plan to increase the enemy variety in the sequel?
A direct answer, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And not just variety, but behavior too. I think you're going to see enemies behaving in ways that you haven't seen before in a Souls-like. And certainly compared to Lords of the Fallen 2023, we're really taking it up a notch. I get to see it every day at work, and I genuinely think we've got a best-in-class Souls-like action game in our hands. And a big part of that is enemy variety, enemy AI, everything that goes into encounter design. We're really kind of operating on another level there.
Cool. Are you planning on expanding weapon and spell selection, and you have other interesting ideas that you want to explore when it comes to weapons and spells? Cool.
Absolutely, yeah. When we say that this game's bolder, bloodier, and braver, I think the bloodier part really applies to weapons and combat, and I think the things you can do in this game are pretty gruesome, brutal, visceral, and a lot of that ties into the weapons and the way that we've kind of designed them to take out enemies. Heads will roll, literally, along with the other body parts. So yeah, we're doing a lot of...
Wow, that is very bold. Like, that is I don't feel like we see that enough these days. And here's something else I want to note real quick, is that I think Lords of the Fallen, people were very critical of this game. I think, honestly, too critical. If this isn't the best Souls-like game, it is definitely got to be top 3. I don't know another one that really tops this. I really like the first Berserker. That was a lot of fun. And you have, like, side-scrolling, like I said, Silksong, stuff like that. But it really is a true Souls-like game and contender to Demon Souls and Dark Souls games. This is it. If not one of the most beautiful, that's for dang sure. But I don't know. I feel like at this time there were so many Souls games coming out that maybe people just looked this one over. I'm really excited to hear that this game's gonna be bloodier and more gory. I'm so hyped for this.
A lot of new, interesting, excited, and stomach-turning things, right?
Okay, cool. Can't wait to see that. It was mentioned that the Umbral realm is going to be like improved in this game, and I really love the mechanic where you're jumping back and forth. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on how you plan to improve or expand upon it?
Absolutely, yeah. A way that I've talked about it in the past internally is that if the previous game was about you stepping into Umbral and kind of touching that other world, this game is about Umbral stepping into you and what happens when you start to be affected by Umbral more deeply. And that applies to kind of how you wield Umbral as a weapon. It also applies to how Umbral affects enemies in Axiom and Umbral now. And that relationship between Axiom and Umbral, it's much more of a dialogue now. Those two worlds, realms are at war, but they're also much more tightly bound to each other. So you're going to see things, I can't get into too much detail, and you're going to interact between Axiom and Umbral in ways that you probably didn't even imagine in a read.
One of the things that me and my buddy Blasphemy were talking about quite often was how your lamp interacts in Axiom and Umbral, and simply just how like they implemented Umbral. I think the concept was really good, and I feel like they were so close. But say a ledge is too high and you're not able to get over that ledge, what do? You lift your lamp. Oh, I have to go on this tree or this little bridge platform that's going to take me up so I can actually walk over that platform. It was just stuff like that that I think was at first, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But over a while, I'm like, man, it'd be so awesome if there was more secrets to unravel and more exploration with it. But I feel like it was more of a tool to simply just progress through the story and get to some places you just literally could not in Axiom. So I'm excited to hear that they're making new mechanics between Umbral and Axiom and how we engage between the two. That is very exciting to hear.
This great, yeah.
Awesome. That sounds fun. The game is currently an Epic exclusive for now, but expected to be on Steam in the future.
We're Epic exclusive for now. That's all I can say. We want to bring the game to as many people as possible. And obviously that's why we're on consoles as well. So there's nothing to say on that for now, other than Epic's a great partner, and we're excited to just get it out there, to get it as many hands as possible.
One of the things that we really enjoyed was the seasonal content and the introduction of challenge modes and such. Do you guys have like another long-term plan for this game, or you plan to incorporate those things in after development as well?
Look, it's a really good question, because Lords of the Fallen 2023, I think we actually, like I said, we learned the hard way. And we always wanted to update the game post-launch, but it also, the issues we had with launch forced our hands to kind of get good at live service style updates and patches and lean more into seasonal content. So I think we've actually built a really good pipeline and understanding of how to update a game post-launch. We're not live service, quote unquote, but our game has been alive since it launched, right? And I think it'd be foolish of us not to carry that too, and make sure that we support it post-launch, right? I think listening to our community is a big part of who we are right now, and that's going to carry on for the rest of CI's time. And I think post-launch, we're going to absolutely be listening to the fans, seeing what they want, what they need, what they expect of us, and go the extra mile as we always have to try and deliver on that. So yeah, I think it would be foolish of us not to do post-launch and uptime.
Here's an interesting question. Are there any recent games that have inspired you in unexpected ways to sort of tweak Lords of the Fallen tour?
We play everything at the studio. We play other Souls-likes, we play lots of third-person action games.
Did you hear what? Hold on.
We play everything at the studio. We play other Souls-likes, we play lots of third-person action games.
I love it when devs in these companies know their niche, know their genre, play other games, play by comparison. Lords of the Man, you know how many leads are in game development, and you're just like, dude, like, why you? Like, you don't even understand. Like, what are we doing here? And the fact that CI Games and Hexworks, they're studying their competition, and this is what they love and play, says a lot about them.
We play games like Doom, whether that's Doom 2016 through to the Dark Ages, and we do pull inspiration from all kinds of different places, right? But what I'd say we pull from most directly, creatively with Lords of the Fallen 2, is film, actually, and dark fantasy fiction. So in terms of film, I think Hellraiser is a big touchstone internally, just in terms of that sort of sadomasochistic body horror, also David Cronenberg films. And I think you saw that in the trailer with the tentacles and some of the imagery you've got in there. We try and pull from outside of games as much as we pull from other games. So yeah, we take inspiration from our peers. That gives us certain ideas that you may or may not recognize, and when you get to see gameplay. But in terms of the creative, we really try and look at a broader canvas on pop culture, because I don't think enough studios do that, right? Which is like pull from media that isn't other games, right? Because I think there's some big, interesting, incredible ideas that have been explored in film and books that we should be looking at in games.
Cool.
Don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Just study what's out there, make it better. Love it.
I like that. With the game set to launch in 2026, when can players expect to get more news, such as a gameplay preview or closed or public demos or something like that? What would be like the next?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to stay quiet. I can say that. I think now we've revealed ourselves to the world. It's going to be go, right? So, you know, our X account's going to be filled with loads of content, you know, starting next month. We've got our video series that's always running, Lived in the Vale. In terms of gameplay, which I know that is always the next question, all I can say is soon, right? And we won't leave you waiting for too long.
All right, fair enough. Can you share anything about the starting class variety or quantity of starting classes in the game?
Only that it's everything you liked before and more and better. Right, it's a sequel, right? We're taking everything that people loved and we're improving on it. And I mean, that goes to, without speaking to specific classes, I can certainly speak to animation, right? And the character animation this time, it's next level. I've had the privilege of watching, you know, combat encounters recently where I call it cutscene quality in terms of the choreography and the animation and the responsiveness and the weight of the weapons. And I think one of our game director James likes to say that the previous game had classes and combat that felt like a dance or a battle. This one is a war, and I think you'll really see that from the start when you get to play it. Hopefully that answers the rest.
Do you plan to add...
I'm really nervous though about Unreal Engine 5. It just seems like every game that's been coming out for Unreal Engine 5 is close to disastrous, even from AAA studios. So we'll see. I think they definitely have their work cut out for them, no matter how hard they try. I feel like just making it through Unreal Engine 5 is going to be a challenge. But there's so much in this. Shout out to Fextralife for a really amazing video. And I'm not just picking his because he has a lot of subscribers. I did a brief overview of this, didn't look into the questioning, nothing like that, but it really intrigues me for him to have that opportunity to speak to a strategist and actually get some answers that a lot of us aren't going to be able to get. So other than that, we will have early access as well to this game and early previews and stuff like that. So like I said, if you're not subscribed here, definitely make sure you do so. And don't forget to smash that like button. Let's keep watching.
difficulty sliders or balancing of some sort for players who struggle with their first playthrough, or no?
Very interesting, relevant, topical question, as I would expect. Difficulty is a huge discussion point for Souls-likes, as you guys know. Yeah. It's one of the great challenges of making a Souls-like. And I think with Lords of the Fall in 2023, we've been on a journey to this day where we're trying to balance the game, quote unquote, right. You know, so what's hardcore for one player might actually just be, you know, medium difficulty for another. What's easy for one player might be difficult for another. So we're constantly having to field feedback from the community. It informs some of our patches and balancing. And, you know, when Lords of the Fall, and just anecdotally, when Lords of the Fall of 2023 came out, we got a lot of criticism in reviews and from the community about the kind of mob density and mob replacement of enemies. There just being too many enemies in certain places. That ultimately is, it's both a design, but it's also a difficulty consideration. There's all these little overlaps between design and difficulty, where you kind of do one thing and it affects difficulty, right? And you do another thing and it affects difficulty. So,
bro, just get good. Just get good. So many people play Souls games and complain about difficulty. It's what makes games good.
One is constant journey of moving sliders with a Souls-like to figure out where is difficulty right. So I know other games have introduced specific difficulty settings. We're on a journey with Lords of Fallen 2 right now, where we feel like we've got the beauty is we've got Lords of the Fallen 2023 to a really good place. We don't want to break that. We don't want to break what people love. We don't want to break ourselves into jail with difficulty, right? To use an expression. But we do know that this is a new and different game, and we've got more enemy variety, we've got new abilities. So we need to make sure that the challenge is equivalent to what we're giving you. Like if we're giving you new tools and new weapons of war, we need to give you, you know, new levels of difficulty, new ways to play. So it's a constant challenge that we're facing, and we're still figuring it out. The one thing I will say is that at launch, we're convinced, even now, and I get to play the game frequently, the difficulty is feeling really good. And again, I'm one person saying that, but I think generally everyone who's playing it is saying it's feeling good and right. And we're testing it all the time. We test it internally. We test it with user labs, you know, other companies that test games for other Souls-like developers. And as the data is telling us, we're in a good place. And you know, bosses is another big part of that. I think not just, you know, it's not just the bits in between bosses, which make up the most of a Souls-like experience. It's the bosses themselves, and I think balancing bosses, designing bosses, difficulty is the constant consideration, right? Like how long does it take to beat this boss for every player of every skill level? I think there's a lot of telemetry, there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And
Yeah, and I think that he makes a really good point. In between, you have the difficulty of in between bosses and then the bosses themselves. And that's something I feel like they did really good actually in Lords of the Fallen 2023, compared to like a game where it's like Black Myth Wukong, where I did not enjoy the in between. The boss fights were epic, but the in between, not so much. I think they did a really good job with that.
already think we have the best bosses we've ever designed.
I have one more question.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, everything that you've learned from Lords of the Fallen, the first game, previous game, what is like, if you had to narrow it down to one thing, like what's the one thing that you want to improve in the second game that would make the game like the next level?
I can answer that quite easily for myself, which is for me, the storytelling and world building, which many fans love. We love it ourselves, right? We established an incredible dark fantasy setting with the previous game. But when I say that's the thing that we'd improve, one criticism and one acknowledged weakness that we're honest about is the density of the story and the density of the world and the kind of world building and the environmental storytelling in the previous game was at times a little bit too ambitious and confusing, right? Some players were confused kind of where to go, what they were doing, why they were doing it. Those questions are ones we're directly addressing with the next game. You will much more clearly know where you're going, why you're going there, how it ties into the story, what your mission is, and how to get around the world at speed.
I really appreciate his honesty by stating that, which I feel like a lot of people just don't do at all. That's all I want to say on that one.
You will always know where you're going, and you will quite often more than not see your end goal and destination on the horizon, right? Because a lot of people felt they were kind of, you know, in caves, stuck in, you know, staring at walls for a lot of Lords of the Fallen. And it's a Souls-like game, right? They're literally very dark games. They're labyrinth theme. But that was something that From Software do really well, right? Which is that interlocked, interlinking world where the environmental storytelling is a part of that DNA. They're brilliant at that. We learned how difficult it is to do that. And this time we've already made strides with the game to improve that and make sure you know where you're going and why. If you know, I think it boils it down to that, what I've just said. In the next game, you will know where you're going and why.
So that wraps up our video on everything I know so far on Lords of the Fallen directly from CI Games themselves. Are you guys excited for the second installment of this title? What do you make of it?
Yeah, Fextralife, shout out to you, man. That was really, really good video. So one of the things I mentioned early on in the video was my lack of understanding when it comes to lore and storytelling and building, stuff like that. So let's check out another video by Invizeron.
The Lords of the Fallen 2 trailer was just released. Let's cover everything we know so far about the game. For starters, the world and location. Where this takes place is not Mournstead. Instead, it's another location completely. The name of it isn't mentioned in the trailer. However, when we check the game description on Epic, PlayStation, or Xbox, it mentions realm by realm, nation after nation, the umbral darkness consumed all in her path. Now, centuries later, only one kingdom remains, and this appears to be one of Aureus' strongholds with numerous radiant entities. So, for whatever reason, it's no longer hidden, and this fallen kingdom is where the game takes place. Now, the actual plot appears to be a little bit odd. We don't really have too much information on it. Of course, the Putrid Mother has gone around devouring everything in her path, but our character is still using the Umbral lamp, and it appears that we also are trying to kill the radiant enemies that left everyone to die. So let's cover the trailer. It starts with a corpse looking at the sky where you see a radiant being flying across to a fortress in the sky. It is likely the female goddess we get to see later in the trailer, but I'll cover that in a bit. While this is happening, a person or creature with this death fog approaches the corpse and starts reviving the body. The hand we see is an umbral afflicted one, similar to Harkin's hand from the previous game, or like
I would have never caught on to that. You see what I'm saying?
the Unbroken Promise after the boy fuses with Howrah Dervla. The trailer does take a lot of cuts to black, but basically it's just the resurrection of a potentially important character. While this is happening, we get our first glimpse of the Lamp Bearer adjusting their gear, accompanied by a female. Now, she might be a Firekeeper type character, or a more like actual ally that goes in combat with you.
Could we just say that that's his girlfriend? Like, that's his wifey for sure. Like, come on. Guy's been busy for 100 years.
In other screenshots on the website, you can see her standing with the Lamp Bearer, and what's more interesting is she is using a radiant spell to kill some knights, and she also has an Umbral Lamp herself. Meaning, again, she might actually be more of a main character that follows you throughout the game. After this scene, you hear the Putrid Mother scream, which happens every time you enter Umbral in the previous game, and it cuts to what appears to be something similar to a Scarlet Shadow, and then Umbral power flowing through the character's eyes. This lets us know that the game is going to have similar mechanics to the previous one, with two realms, one being Axiom and the other one Umbral. Though again, it's a bit odd because in the Umbral ending, the veil between the two worlds was basically broken. However, thanks to the game description again, we get some insight as it mentions the world of the living and dead are beginning to bleed into one, which means perhaps the Putrid Mother hasn't been able to fully cross over into Axiom just yet. And in the bottom, it mentions that each realm has its own pathways, treasures, and enemies.
All right. So explore a broken world, journey across a vast war-torn kingdom, crumbling from within as the realms of living and dead begin to bleed into one. Okay. From moonlit citadels to time-ravaged temples, tread carefully for each step forward may very well be your last. Let's see what else we have here. Whether steel or sorcery, melee or ranged, experiment with countless builds to overcome each unique enemy encounter before delivering an arena-drenching execution. So for battle, monstrous bosses confront colossal abominations forged in a world without hope or void of mercy. Each distinct showdown will prove a brutal test of skill, grit, and unyielding will, though aid is at hand should you seek it. Okay, we know about that. As bearer of the Umbral Lamp, you have the ability to pass between the realms of the living and the dead, each with its own pathways, treasures, and of course, nightmarish creatures. But even greater, darker powers await you on this journey. Okay, so it sounds a lot like the first one.
How different it'll be from the first game is still to be determined, but you can tell that it's going to have that switching back and forth to some extent. There's also a scene of the Lamp Bearer just brutally murdering some knights, and you get a decent look at the new locations. I'm not going to show too much of the bloody stuff because I don't want to get demonetized, and it then cuts into a person giving dialogue of how the gods have forsaken us, and that we will bring retribution, which implies that Aureus and the other Radiant gods stayed hidden and left everyone else to die while, this calamity of Umbral was going around. Hence why we're trying to hunt them down in this trailer. What's also interesting is he asked the Lamp Bearer a question on if they'd harness the darkness within to fight these Radiant Lords and bring them, justice, implying that there will be multiple endings in this game as well. As an aside, it looks like this character might be someone brand new, or they might be a returning character from before. The closest resembling character I could find across both games is Kaslo, which is from the 2014 one. However, it's extremely unlikely that these are the same person, since Kaslo died back in that game. From here, we get a look at the Radiant Goddess enemy. We don't have much information on her, apart from her being like the guard to the Radiant Kingdom, or that floating castle in the sky, or at least it looks that way. She then proceeds to kill the lamp bearer, and of course the lamp bearer gets revived in the Umbral realm, where we can see the Putrid Mother is a lot more red than before. That, combined with the game being a lot more bloody, makes me assume that the Putrid Mother might have gained some of the Rogar powers after a deer was consumed. Again, assuming the Umbral ending is the actual canon one. Going back a few frames, the narrator mentions that if you fail, the world falls with you, and there are multiple cuts between the Putrid Mother destroying the kingdom and the Radiant enemy killing you, which kind of reinforces the potential for multiple endings. Another small thing of note is that this
That's a really good analysis, I think. If we have multiple different endings, that's going to be really awesome. But yeah, really good catch on his part.
enemy, this female, might play a similar role to the Light Reaper, given the similarities between the Lords of the Fallen 2023 trailer and this one, where this big bad character takes you out and then you get revived in Umbral. There's not much more in the trailer apart from this dragon-like creature on the end screen, so the next bit of information we get is from the official website. A lot of the information it gives confirms a few things, like there are 2 realms crumbling into one, the combat system being similar to the previous game with sorcery, melee, and ranged options. There are also only 5 screenshots, and the most interesting one is this corrupted angel. Their hand looks like the one from the trailer, and they definitely look like they've been afflicted by the Rogar corruption, but if all the Rogar are dead, then it's unlikely, and this is some form of new Umbral corruption that has adopted aspects of Rogar. The rest of the website leads to a couple more pages. The first one doesn't relate to the game, the second one covers the reveal of Lords of the Fallen 2, and in watching some of the videos that mention it, you can see a little bit of the concept art for the second game, showing a couple potential locations or just a general theme of how it'll look. So
we can see castle in the distance. You have walkway bridges from one tower to the next, water down below. I wonder how much of that is in play though. Going from like one to the next, if we can traverse through water, that'd be pretty cool.
Locations or just a general theme of how it'll look. There's also an in-depth explanation explaining the vision into the theming for the second game. The final page is just going over how this game is going to be a lot more violent than the first game, which means it'll be a lot more disturbing and kind of more focused like the Tower of Penance, which is incredibly gory, which I'm not too sure if I'm a fan of since I tried to cut out all the violent parts when I upload stuff onto YouTube, but I guess we'll have to see how it goes.
Great video by Invizeron. Hopefully I said that name right. There's a lot to pick here. And I think that's really great that he's able to pull that information from a very short trailer. And that's something that I'm not very good at all. But I'm even more excited. Are you? Let me know down in the comments. I cannot wait for Lords of the Fallen 2. It seems like, I don't want to say there's a bunch of promises being made. What it sounds like is that there was a lot to learn from, and they're going to improve on those things. And that's what I'm excited about. And I hope you once again enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you click on the screen. It'll take you to more videos by B Sparks Gaming. On that note, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.